Our goal is to actually talk with some people that are actually building these systems and deploying them. So feel free to introduce yourselves.
Hey, my name is Rajy. I'm a data and AI architect at Priceline. Technically, I'm a ML platform, Gen AI platform lead, and implementing Arize observability for ML models and Gen AI and agentic solutions. Yep.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kanch. I'm in Google. I'm a technical solutions manager for agents. What I do is I talk to customers, close to 20 a week, try to understand the patterns of problems and build open source solutions. That's our primary focus area.
Great. Do you want to describe, maybe we start at the top, like Pennybot might be a good one. Like, what is it? What's an example of an actual use case? Describe what it does.
Okay, maybe I'm not supposed to give permission to talk much about it, but it is our company's chatbot where it handles the booking system for cancellations, booking process and itinerary generations. So it has the human system plus the chatbot agentic system. We have robust evaluation frameworks, which we are going to talk about today. So it has the end-to-end observability.
So, and do you guys, I guess starting at the top, and you see a lot of customers too, what are the reasons, what are some of the deployment scenarios? Is it chat, customer service? What are the deployment scenarios you see and business use cases you see tackled?
For me, that Langchain slide resonated very well. So if I think about it, like the agents existed before generative AI. And that was a deterministic kind of an agent. And that was always the case. So the customer support definitely resonated. And then the research and summarization definitely resonates. A knowledge assistant being the key player of an agent. So then the router and trying to navigate the productivity tasks, these kind of come across pretty often for me. Pretty often when you ask a customer what is an agent, they tend to talk about conversational agents, and then it goes towards other agentic frameworks which are out there.
Got it. And in terms of, in your experience, what are some of the biggest challenges in getting the stuff to work as you deploy it?
When I think about the challenges wise, most often, like any generative AI application, the prototype is always easy. It's the productionizing. I think Mustafa Suleyman, the Microsoft CEO, had this comment which said, getting the 60% is not hard. Getting it to 90% is the hardest part. And every company or every organization I have worked with struggle through that. So it's the evaluation in development is one thing, but evaluation in production is completely a different scale.
And Rajy, did you see the same thing?
Yeah, I would take it to prototyping to production, right? But I will incorporate the same evaluation framework. First, I would define a robust framework for evaluations, including for me, the biggest challenge in the setting of the evaluation framework is about implementing the evaluations at the subtask level to the final completion level, right? Final output versus the subtask. There is always a trade-off between them. If you take about evaluation setup at the subtask, you get the evaluations covered for the entire subtask, whether ensuring that the output is in line and removing all the cascading errors, right? But if you have the final output evaluations, you have the evaluation output covered, but you're missing that granularity of the complete cascading stuff. Also, but you're saving the cost there. So there is always a trade-off between this and that. And also, the biggest challenge, which I would say is, having the overfitting of the evaluations, right? For the training data, the model will be overfitted. Like it gives, it understands a specific set of the outputs, but if the training data doesn't contain the enough information, the overfitting happens. So you have to always have the training data enough to have different patterns, different phrases tested with the ad hoc queries. So, yeah.
And I think one of the points that you're just making, which is kind of lost in some cases here, is sometimes you're doing like almost product level evals, like was the conversation good, was the conversation bad, and then there's evaluations on very little specific things too. So evals are this broad term you're using, but sometimes it means a very high level assessment, and sometimes it's very, very like branch and execution specific.
Yeah.
And in terms of any things as you kind of were deploying your agent and or trying to deploy your assistant, any challenges that you found as you went from development to production? Any things that kind of came up, and any ways you found to enhance or improve it as you got real data?
Yeah, I would say that having the scalability at the infrastructure level. Initially we did prototype with a certain type of the databases, or data stores, which could fit only structured or unstructured data. And when we wanted to implement the RAG solution with the vector DB, the vector data types is not feasible with the existing data stores. So selecting the proper scalable infrastructure for unstructured, structured, vector, graph, all these data stores to implement the agentic solutions is one of the key.
Got it. And so there's all these like blocking and tackling of getting this stuff to work, which is painful. I guess a question for you is, do the frameworks help at all? Are the frameworks useful? Do you use any of the frameworks? The frameworks could be like the lane graphs or lane chains of the world, or workflows from Llama.
But just entering into the frameworks, actually we did all the prototyping stuff for very quick to go to the market stuff is currently leveraging the frameworks like Langflow. We implemented Langflow for the non-prod and prototyping. I would say there's a lot of benefit with that, right? Like you have the out-of-the-box best practices in the development approaches. It saves time. But if I'm using a complex project with business metrics to be used, I would go with the framework on top of the established open source frameworks.
Got it. And in production, do you tend to see, and this might be a question for you as well, do people take the frameworks all the way to production? Are they prototype, or is it designed for the full thing, or is it so early, hard to tell?
I think it's too early to tell.
Okay.
But the way I'm seeing customers is, as Rajy mentioned, more customers are using frameworks as they start their journey. Because it's easy for a developer to adapt. It has a higher level framework. You don't need to know nitty-gritty details. Most developers can pretty much get an agentic flow working in like 2 hours with all the samples and recipes which are available. So I see that very often. But when it comes to productionizing, that's when many organizations ask, why do I need this framework? What am I getting out of it? Then, as Rajy was mentioning, they're like, okay, I can do this myself with any model and with function calling, so why do I need this? So at this point of time, there are, of course, as we saw, there are several different frameworks, and most of them are really good at what they do. They integrate very well to the ecosystem with Arize and other partners out there. So I feel like that piece of it is something which frameworks gives by default. Because you just have it and you don't have to worry about operations, monitoring, observability, getting the evaluation standards. How do you convert this from, your business metrics to your KPI metrics to your evaluation metrics? All of that is pretty much defined. But there are still some kind of a hesitance with respect to frameworks, I say.
Yeah, and in terms of evaluation, and like, do you do human evaluation? Like we kind of talk a lot about LLM evals, but how much does human annotations and human labeling come in?
Yeah, before before these online evals came in picture, right? Human in loop is the only way for us to do this. But I would not come out from the human in loop, though we have the online eval set up for having the feedback loops and continuous monitoring and all this stuff. I would still go with the human feedback with one-off cases.
Yeah, I think we see that as well. So some trade-off between scale, which is low but very high confidence in the human piece, and then the evals on top.
Your demo actually was really good in that regard, because if I were to think about it, right, you were able to incorporate the human component of asking the natural language questions against the data, in addition to whatever the LLM as a judge had done. So I really feel like that is a hand-off here, than it's either or. In most cases, we need both at this point of time to be able to scale and implement.
Though we have this tagging and sampling of the data, I would still take the data, like user frustrations, take it and sample it and find it, how the chatbot is working.
And I totally agree. I think there's some trade-off there. They asked us to make this a 15-minute session, so I wanted to give like a minute or two if there's any questions out there. Anyone want to ask questions of people implementing this stuff? Yeah. Okay. Good question.
My question was around like building agent systems with small LLMs. So I know like Gemma, Phi3, those are getting better and more capable. So how do you fit that into the picture of building with the best frontier models versus like also using smaller models?
Is the question building the smaller like evaluating between smaller models and larger models? Is that?
Yeah, so the question's like SLM use within the customer. SLM's a term for a small language model, which we tend to see advantageous for guardrails or evals where you want something fast and cheap, but simple, and it's like maybe a little more generalizable than something else. So that's where I've seen it. Guardrails and evals that are pretty high scale and static. I don't know if you see SLMs.
No, but I haven't observed that behavior in such, but maybe as you had pointed out, it's more for guardrailing.
I think the Gemma is an example of the latest Google model that fits, and then I've seen people actually use for that. Any other questions here?
Thank you so much. This has been incredible. I have a question. I do LLM as a judge evals at a startup, and I wondered, I thought that the point on like integrating human feedback is still better, and so building golden data sets is kind of where like a lot of our evaluations come from. And so I guess like what's the best way to build like sort of these AI native systems where you're integrating both human feedback and also LLMs as a judge? I guess like you kind of get this very like fixed amount of like data from a golden data set, but like I guess in the future, how do you see evaluation kind of progressing and scaling? I know I asked like 2 questions in one question, but like just more broadly, where do you see evaluation going, given like sort of this like human is better, but it's fixed?
Yeah, so just to repeat the question, what I heard was, where do we see evals going with this trade-off between human and LM as a judge, and any trends or things that you see in terms of what do you see? Yeah, and how do those two trade off each other?
If I were to think about it, right, like the metrics or evaluation metrics, again, is not new concept. Like, we feel like we are reinventing some of the metrics. So there was this precision, recall, F1 evaluation, like all of that we did. And then with generative AI, you have Blue, Roj, like, F1 sequence, things like that. But when like, I think about human when it comes into picture. It always existed. There's the thumbs up, thumbs down, and then trying to evaluate the ground truth against contextual similarity, a factual similarity, a contextual awareness, things like that, which are going to continue. And I think that is still the stepping stone for defining what these trade-offs are. Like, this field is still very much nuanced, that I would never, at least at this point of time, depend on LLM as a just completely, to be honest. Human in the loop is always going to be there. But the human in the loop needs aid in some regards. And for me, Arize AI could be one of that partner, which enables your teams to be able to build better. At least that's the way I look at it, but I don't know about you.
Yeah, I would believe in online evals for sure. I would label the data. I would get the, like good evals, bad evals. I would take the sampling metrics. But if you see in the real-time scenarios, right, you cannot sample the entire data. You do a 5% of or 10% of the data. And there you know that you're not sampling the complete data. I would still go with the human in loop because I'm sampling only limited data.